Hi, this is Senator Adam Hollier, and this is the We Can Do Better podcast, where we interview people who are doing interesting work in the 2nd Senate District and in right around across the state of Michigan. So I'm really excited to kind of kick off and be in Black History Month as we talk about people who are actually making history and being a part of that story. And so both SayKay and Cam are from here now, because I claim everybody who is chosen to be here. But I reached out to her because I follow them on Instagram, where, I saw some of these workouts that you were doing and how it was paying tribute to Black folks in a space that hadn't necessarily been happening. And come to find out, you're like, oh yeah, and my gym is like I was like, hey, wait, your gym is like 3 miles, 4 or 5 miles from my house. And I was like, how funny is that? You're right there. So if you want to introduce yourselves, tell us, how you got started and yeah.
Sure. SayKay, as you said, Cam, we are co-owners of CrossFit HCS in Ferndale, right on 9 Mile and Hilton. And I've been doing CrossFit for 5.5 years. And what's your count now?
Yeah, so I've been doing CrossFit for almost a decade. I think I started in 2010, maybe.
Wow. That's like the beginning of CrossFit. That's like, you don't even know, where it is. It's like back in like the early days of strongman. It's like, that's a thing? What is that?
Yeah, back in the day, it was just like a few people. I would do it at like, your local gym or Planet Fitness, get kicked out of that and because you do CrossFit at Planet Fitness. It's in their bylaws at this point, but I've been coaching CrossFit since I would say 2011. Yeah, so I started in 2010. So 2011 is when I started coaching CrossFit, and then we opened up in 2017.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me be a little bit of the straw man in this. So CrossFit, I hear, is a cult, and this is saying someone who has been doing CrossFit for about a year and like couldn't be more invested. So when people say CrossFit, can you explain what that means? What is CrossFit?
Oh, you got to take this.
So what is CrossFit and what is CrossFit as a cult is like kind of two different things. But I'll go with the cult one because that's more interesting. I mean, we could talk about CrossFit all day, but why CrossFit's a cult is kind of a really interesting phenomenon because the way CrossFit works is it kind of gets into that competitive level inside of yourself, number one. So every time you come in and you kind of see what's on the board and you see what everybody else has got and you kind of measure what you've gotten inside of you. And there's that little thing that says, maybe I can push myself a little bit harder today to do something a little bit more difficult. And that kind of little competitive step every single time is something that interests a lot of people because everybody wants to see themselves get better at things, and being able to like that, make that little difference every time to get better. And you can kind of see it or like push a little bit harder, shave a few seconds here. That's number one. Number two is that you're around a community of like-minded people who are also wanting to get better at things. That's kind of rare in spaces, is that especially like personal spaces where you're trying to improve yourself, to be around a group of people that are also just want to improve yourself. So we're talking about, people who may be 65 years old and overweight, and then you've got like a 20-something-year-old college athlete that are all in the same class trying to do the exact same thing. And that builds this camaraderie. So you all can talk about these like really fun or brutal workouts and kind of reminisce about like, oh my God, Murph, have you done Murph? And then you all talk about that. So it brings this whole cycle of like, I'm getting better and I'm this internal part of me wants to get better. And then everybody around me wants to get better. So then you can kind of like push your entire life of like everything. I just want to see myself improve. And all the people around me, my coaches and all of my friends start to get into this kind of same sphere of like, we all just want to get better. And then that's why it seems like a cult, because you get into that circle and everybody's like stewing off each other and thinking like, oh yeah, better fitness, better fitness, better fitness. And then everybody's like, okay, better fitness. And then you go outside of that circle, you start talking to people like better fitness. And they're like, what? So that's kind of why it seems like a cult.
So speaking of that, you talked about Murph times. It's funny, that little bit of competition that you were talking about, I have like a lot of bit of that. So I think that little bit of me probably takes up everything inside of me from my toes to my shoulders. So it's kind of a, so where's your Murph time at? Where we at? Where we're at?
Oh man, we did a bad one this past year.
Oh man. So having done Murph or doing CrossFit for so long, I've done Murph 8 or 9 times at this point.
What's your best?
My best is 28 minutes.
Wow.
Unvested. So that was unvested.
You got to keep changing the versions. The more
it's got to count. You got to have the vest for it to count.
Right. So my fastest vested was like 37 minutes.
Okay. Nice.
Yes.
And then
I have no idea.
I'm at 43.
43. Nice.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. I'm slow.
I think I've only done it twice while having pull-ups and being able to do pull-ups with a vest.
So for all of our listeners who are not in the cult, Murph is with a 20-pound vest for men and a 16-pound vest for women.
14.
Running. What'd you say? 14? Yep. It's 1 mile run, 100 pull-ups, 200 sit-ups.
200 push-ups.
Yeah, 200 push-ups and 300 air squats, and then another mile run. One of my favorite workouts. But so the reason I brought up the idea of a cult is because what's I think made the work you're doing at Iron Roots Athletes so interesting is the cult has really been a very white male centric type space, right? Like when people think about CrossFit, they're thinking about like something like a gym bro, but a little different. And so, you've highlighted a lot of people who are different. Can you talk about how that has been happening and the kind of overall context of how you started and what that meant, especially in the CrossFit and fitness space over the last year?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I think you like create this vision of what CrossFit is based on how you start. Mm-hmm. And that's why there can be so many conflicting views on CrossFit, because I think for understanding, CrossFit is a name, it's a training methodology, and then you have affiliates. The affiliates really don't have to hold to anything other than, having their certifications and paying to use the name itself. Other than that, you can run your gym however you want to run it. So where you start really builds your perception of CrossFit. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times if someone has had a bad experience, that's their one view, and that's what they think of CrossFit across the board, which unfortunately, you can get a very different experience, from here, go a mile in any direction, and you'll just get a different experience. And not necessarily that being a bad thing, but I see it as the potential for good, because you need to you need to find the community that fits you. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, for people who look like us, a lot of times there are not a lot of options for a community that makes us feel comfortable bringing our full selves into the gym. You get into this habit. I don't know why people are comfortable saying, leave everything at the door. Mm-hmm. Why am I leaving everything at the door if this is a part of my life routine? That's just impossible. I can't leave my skin color at the door. I can't leave whatever you're thinking when you see me at the door. Mm-hmm. So why would I leave all that? I want you to bring it in. I want you to be your full self. You had a crap day at work. I want to know, okay, that's why you want to go, all out on this workout. And I said, cool, I'm not going to bother you. And I think that's what's most important to understanding the CrossFit, space, is that each gym is run completely independently. And for us, we saw an avenue of creating a gym with everything that we find to be important at the forefront: diversity, inclusion, accessibility, and everything that has gone on over the summer, which is funny because I already had a platform kind of built, but I hadn't acted on it yet. And I was lucky enough to coordinate with another a DEI actual professional who did CrossFit for a while and does weightlifting. And we were able to combine and say, okay, how do we start to interact with this community that we want to educate, but in a way that they understand? So for us, okay, my passion is fitness. I co-own a CrossFit gym. I know that the gym, we are always doing memorial workouts for fallen soldiers or people who do CrossFit that may have been taken from us too soon. And for us, it's kind of like the difference in, Twitter and Black Twitter. I've got, people in my world that I want to highlight. And if CrossFit doesn't have any diverse people making these workouts or being aware of the things going on because either they choose to or they're working inside their own, world, then we're going to create it for ourselves. And we found that we could educate people the same way we do in memorial WODs. So for us, we said, okay, well, how can we'll create these memorial WODs for people that have been taken too soon, beginning with the police brutality. Mm-hmm. And from there, let's educate, here was the exact situation, but here's the systemic reasoning behind everything that goes on in America. And creating those almost bite-sized pieces of education, I think have been helpful in building a stronger community within CrossFit for the people who believe and care. If you'll reach out and find education if you care enough for it. And it's really, broadened, I think, a way of education where I'm not telling you, I would love for you to read this book, but while you're here, I want you to do this workout for Breonna Taylor, and I want you to know all these facts. So every single rep, the reasoning behind it. And these are the things I want you to think about while you're doing the workout.
For people who don't know CrossFit as well, that's an important part of these memorial WODs. So like with Murph, that is named after Lieutenant Michael Murphy, which people will know from the movie and those kind of things. But before anybody does Murph, they always say, hey, this is who he was as a person. This is who this person was. And you see a lot of police officers, you see a lot of folks that, don't look like us. But in your workouts, it was very different because you're saying, hey, this is what happened with her, right? Like I always think about the John Lewis workout that you did shortly after his passing, because I was out on military duty. And so I was out, on a military installation with my ruck going back and forth and doing this thing. People were like, what are you doing? It's like, I'm doing this John Lewis thing. And talking to people to make them think about this space, because you put you make a good workout and people are like, oh, well, I will learn about this because that's a good workout. And then they learn it in the space.
Yeah, I think that's the coolest part. It's bringing the education to them and then saying, okay, I hope you do this in your gym and do it the same way you do any other workout. Mm-hmm. Here's the reasoning and here's the why, because it goes right back into that, leaving everything at the door. I'm not having the same day you're having the day Breonna Taylor was killed. Mm-hmm. And maybe it didn't even cross your news, your news feed, but it's all over mine. Yes. And I can leave that at the door. And I don't want to explain that when I walk in, like, hey, oh, well, why are you in a bad mood? Another Black woman, same age as me, was just shot in her own bed. It's those conversations that are hard to have. But if a coach or, the head programmer is following along with some of these things and they see who they need to start being educated by to diversify their news, they can start to understand their community better and expand their community so that everyone can feel welcome. And you're not putting a member on the spot, asking them, something that they feel should be so obvious about how they're feeling that day. Oh, why are you upset about, this person you didn't know being killed? It's not some person I didn't know. Every situation is us. Yep. When we see that news. And I think it's important because of just the different information everyone's always getting and the way that we can curate it ourselves. If you get that other aspect, even if you don't, go out of your way to educate, well, you should at the very least care about everyone in your community and what happens and involves them in and outside of the gym.
And to that end, I think there's been a lot of discussion about the lack of diversity in CrossFit, but in fitness in general, right? And as we think about it, it's very, I guess it's a strange space, right? When we think about professional sports, they are largely dominated by people of color. Your basketball, football, track, Black people. And, when you look out at baseball or things like, when there is opportunity, you see more people that look like us. But in the fitness space, that is not a common trope, right? Like that's not that common space. But you talked a little bit, Cam, I think about, those college athletes, right? So I was a college athlete. Wow, more than a decade ago. And, I would have been all into CrossFit if someone had said, hey, you really like lifting heavy weights? Yes, I do. You like running fast? Yes, I do. You like jumping high? Yes, I do. You like working? This is the thing for you. There is a way to continue to have sport. But I found CrossFit through first the Buttery Rose and, you know, the Froning documentary. And then with my travels as a legislature, like I was literally at a conference and I was going to run, and a white Republican legislator from New Hampshire. So just to preface on how white that is, right? She was like, do you want to go CrossFit? And I was like, sure, I've never done that before, but I like exercise, right? So we go and we do CrossFit, and it's this great experience. You know, we're in Lexington, Kentucky, and that's my first CrossFit. And then the next time I did was while I was at Airborne School in Georgia with one of my Army buddies, you know, with a guy I met in class, and he has really been my like consistently through this process. And so when we talk about leaving everything at the door, they mean that for us, right? Like white people aren't asked to leave their life at the door. That's what people talk about in the gym. They talk about their life. It's just our experiences are so different. And I know you all have talked a great deal about building communities that respect it and engage and encourage that. How have you been able to craft that in your gym and in your space so that people understand there's value to both of those spaces?
We can start it up. Think about it.
Yeah, I think what's a big one that's always first is just so easy is just presenting yourself as you are. You know, I think firstly, for better or worse, we already filter people by our ownership makeup that, you know, like Cam is the only male you're gonna see, period, you know, coaching, which is already a stark difference to any gym you walk into.
Yeah.
And we're very upfront about this. And the reason that we offer a free week, because we truly feel you, almost any gym, you're going to get a little bit more fit, you know, if you're doing the right things and coming in consistently, you know, consistency being key. But we're giving you a free week because we are who we are. We're not going to flex on that. So if you come in, you see what we talk about, you see what we listen to, you see who's coaching, and we give you a week of that. And you should know by that point what's up here. You know, it's not hiding who you are and being upfront about it. And it's funny because this question is almost always difficult for me to answer because I feel like, I don't know, we're just being ourselves, you know, and
but like that's such a unique experience, right? Like, you know, how often are you actually able to just be you in the regular world? I know in my role, there was a lot of time I spent not being me so that I can do the things that I'm tasked with doing. And I imagine it's got to be true, you know, in the fitness space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just kind of like moving on that as well, as especially just being a male and with all of the other owners being female, it's a different space and a kind of a different attitude when you're approaching other people or just around, and just seeing the conversations between athletes and the other male coaches. I mean, female coaches. You can kind of see the female athletes relax a little bit more and be able to talk about things that are more personal for them or more on their side. So where they come from understanding. Now, it's not that I'm not in the space or there aren't any other males in the gym, but we can also kind of engage in the conversation in that right. So that way we become more educated because they felt more comfortable talking to a female athlete felt more comfortable talking to a female coach. So then I become more aware of more female issues or women issues. So then, and that kind of translates to a lot of things. If we have a Black athlete or if something is going on in the world and we're talking about it and we're not shying away from it from a class, or if we have another Black athlete in and we're just kind of talking about the conversation, then other people are hearing the conversation and can ask questions, and we are open always to regardless of what the conversation is, we always answer and ask everyone questions, and we have that communication. And that's kind of one of the bigger things, I guess, just talking it out, that we have here is that we are always communicating with every one of our members. Like it's not uncommon for us to ask multiple questions and figure out what their day is like, what's going on, how are they feeling, and not just in like how are they feeling physically. It's like mentally, where are you at? How's things going? How's your life? How's job going? How are you eating? Where's your vacation? What's your favorite food, it's things like that. It's all of that means that when we ask something about what's going on in the news about these killings, or when we have that conversation, then they feel comfortable asking us these questions, or we can open up and ask them questions, and because we may not know a thing or they might not know something about us. So having that dialogue with all of our members is right. That open dialogue, and when we can break out after a class or before a class where we can just kind of talk about whatever freely. That's one of the biggest things is that I've seen and have been coached at other places, and that yes, people talk, but it is kind of, again, the conversation being culty of what's your Murph, Fran, those type of times. And that was hard, and maybe you get a little clicks and stuff like that can talk about other things. But being able to have a conversation about anything that's going on, and it really kind of makes people feel at home and be able to learn and grow as, a community.
And even like the athletes themselves, like educating us, like this entire conversation, all I'm thinking was, I just had a conversation on learning and being better about the binary gender. Even in this conversation, I'm like, how could I have said that better? I've had this conversation, like, how could I have included non-binary language in that? So it's being able to, your athletes knowing if I say something, they're not going to just, they're not going to take it as offense and then just like not pay attention and not coach me during class. Like, it's not, it's personal, but it's not personal in that sense, in terms of, I want to learn from you in whatever you have to offer, whether you know it or not.
Right.
To that end, as you talk about these spaces, I love the Black Health Matters shirt, but as we talk about kind of these spaces, I think there is a renewed or new emphasis on the health disparities around Black people, around physical activity, and I don't want to say, I feel like people are often saying that Black people are either pro athletes or couch potatoes, right? Like these kind of spaces and what have you been able to do? And I know you've done a lot of advocacy around promoting just health in general and health in different sizes and spaces, right? Like, so all healthy people do not have washboard abs, and myself included, but that's mostly because I like French fries too much. Like every year my goal is washboard abs, and every year I'm like, or every week I'm like, yeah, I should be frying French fries 3 times a week.
Right.
During the work week, not like on the weekends. The weekends, obviously, you have to do it at least twice a day, but that's neither here nor there. But like, what does health look like to you? How are you encouraging your members, and as you advocate for Black people to be healthy, what are you telling them to do? What are you encouraging?
Oh man, that's a hard overarching one.
Yeah, it's the big thing that we try to do is to make sure everyone understands that everyone should move. And we love CrossFit, and we're obviously in it. That's our space and what we do. But we don't want it to be like CrossFit or nothing.
Right.
And that is kind of the idea. A lot of people, like, even talking to it, or you might even talk to your family or whoever it might be, they kind of think like, well, I know SayKay and Cam, they do CrossFit, but that's not for me. So I'm going to stay on the couch. And that's not what we're talking about. What we want you to do is find whatever works for you. And that's something we try to, again, when we're talking to members or anyone in the community, we want people to understand that, like, yeah, you might not like CrossFit, but we want you to move. And we want you to tell all of your family members, like, yeah, you come here and they might not want to do CrossFit, but tell all your family members to move. Get them off the couch, get them, whatever, just walk for a day, maybe run for 20 seconds a day, and then, walk for 20 seconds. Just try to figure out some way to get yourself moving, because that's the biggest step or the hurdle for a lot of people, is that there is no activity. Like, so it's go to work, eat, come back home, and then just try to recover from work. And really, we can add just little bits every day. And we want to make sure people understand it doesn't have to be all out every time, throw everything at it. You can just go for a 10-minute walk, little bike ride.
Yeah, I think it's the same way in the education. As I was speaking to Iron Roots athlete, it's all about meeting people where they're at. And that's why I always struggle with like one answer, but it's overarchingly just meet people where they're at. Like, I can use like anecdotes from like my own mother. Like, I own a gym, but it took me years to get her going somewhere consistently that she liked. And every time I went to visit, we would try a different gym, and she just stumbled across one that she ended up liking. And, you know, and that was personal for her. You know, she had to find the coach that she trusted. And, you know, it's a process with all of that. You know, we had to, you know, get to all the way to the point where she loves air frying vegetables now. Like, it's like she loves wings. Now she gets to air fry her wings, but it's all about stepping.
Beet fries. Tell her to make beet fries.
Ooh, beet fries.
Yeah, I'm all about it. So I have a 3-year-old, and I know I'm a halfway decent parent because my daughter's like, Daddy, when are we going to have some more beet fries? I was like, I got to get some more beets, Lily. She doesn't even know the French, like she looks at French fries. She's like, I like beet fries. Like, she doesn't even know the difference, like that there are such things as potato French fries. She just assumes those are beet fries. That's
ideal, because that's a big part of like us wanting to having been in schools and setting up the gym in Hamtramck at the school, is if kids learn it as a means of having to happen, it doesn't seem weird to them. You know, like I danced growing up. So, you know, go to school, I eat, I do my homework, I go do dance, or I go do soccer, or I go to gymnastics. And it's really ingraining from that generation, or that at that age, that it's just, you know, it's part of your daily routine, or every other day routine is I got to move. Yep. And for athletes, it feels normal. I know I left college and I was like, well, what's next? You know, what am I about to do with my extra time to get moving? But if it's not ingrained at that early age, which is where we try to work with adults and say, okay, well, what do you like to do? Rollerblade? That's making a comeback right now. Well, you know I know a spot that's got some smooth concrete, like go rollerblade. You know, it doesn't matter what it looks like. If you have a specific goal, then we can apply some things that's going to help there. But you're not trying to overwhelm someone. I just want you to move a little bit more so that we can educate you on why you're in the position that you're in, because there are racial factors to that as well as other factors. And we're trying to reverse that and empower the people to know that they can be in control to fix some of those issues that have been placed on them.
And to that end, can you just talk a little bit about the value and the need for coaching? I know you, I follow you on social media and we talk about things. So I know that you, even though you own a gym and are coaching, have your own coach for weightlifting and learning technique and doing some of those kind of things. Can you just talk about how important it is for folks to find a coach or an accountability buddy or whatever the case may be to be successful doing these things? I
think having someone, period, is important first and foremost. You have somebody that's you're comfortable with. And then if you get to a point that you want some guidance, that's what's most important. I think any coach always needs a coach. I mean, I'm lucky to be surrounded by coaches that have decade plus of experience. All our other owners have decade plus experience. And I get to be around around them, and we get to educate one another. But as for, you know, an athlete, I think it's always important to have a coach so that you can have someone else that's outside of your own brain. You know, like I can convince myself that, you know, if I go to, you know, Bobcat Bonnie's and get this burger, that means I'm meeting my protein. Let's not talk about the bun. That doesn't matter. You know, I can convince myself of that. But sometimes I'll say, no, I can't have any of that. I need to have a salad, no meat, no dressing. And those are the two opposite ends of the spectrum, right? And if your brain can convince you of just about anything, sometimes you need that advocate on the outside that's going to talk to you and say, hey, don't stress about that, you know, bag of Swedish fish that you ate. And let's just work on about the next day. But maybe I'm in a place where I need the coach to be like, SayKay, maybe not animal crackers every single night. Like that, you know? So I think a coach is really important, as it's in the same vein of, you know, when you get to that step that you need to step it up a little bit, it gives you that guidance. But which is a reason why a lot of people, I don't want people to take away and say, okay, I need a coach, but I need a coach and I can't afford a coach, so I'm not going to get a coach. That's a big one too. And that's one of our biggest things, is lowering that access barrier to quality. Because a lot of times, you know, people will price themselves low because they don't have any experience. And then people with a lower, they don't have the extra spending money for activities like that are now getting people who may not have as much experience and are pricing themselves low just to gain that experience and practice on people.
Yeah.
For lack of a better word. So for us, that's kind of the Robin Hood Fitness side, is kind of balancing that out so that we can, give that opportunity to people at a quality level and intermingling with people of different socioeconomic status. And this goes outside of race. It's just mixing different people together, because I think that builds the best communities. And yeah, I think that's the biggest thing with coaching is even if you see a need for it, feeling like it's inaccessible to you. So yes, it's a need, but it's not an end all. And there are good resources out there to get quality, or at least in a quality group, even if you don't have a one-on-one coach, to get that influence, that in education that you need.
Awesome. So every time, we do one of these, I always ask people what they're doing to stay active. But I imagine that's probably a pretty long discussion with you. So what are you focusing on? What's your go-to activity these days? Where are you at in your cycle?
Oh, for physical activity?
Yeah, for physical activity.
Okay. I am focusing on weightlifting for a couple of reasons. One, our new space allows for us to have a dedicated weightlifting space, which I'm so excited about.
Okay.
And then I was certified through USAW level 1 through their scholarship program over the summer. And I went to Ann Arbor to get myself a coach. And so I'm over at Lily Weightlifting, building myself as basically I'm taking myself through my first cycle, because I don't think I can coach anyone through a cycle unless I've gone through one myself. So I am weightlifting 4 times a week right now. And that's really my
Olympic weightlifting, right? Not powerlifting. So people.
Yeah, so snatches, clean and jerk are the only 2 movements I've been working on for the past 2 months. And then I'll start throwing in some cardio because the open is coming and I'm still gonna do it. So I need a little bit of cardio, but that is what I'm focused on, so that we can bring it back to our gym. I can coach, I can tell the rest of our coaches what I've learned and also apply it to our members. So that's another big reason that coaches need coaches. So the more I learn, the more our athletes can learn, and we can pick up a weightlifting program at the gym.
What about you, Cam?
Yeah, still doing CrossFit in the general sense of, so like my focus would still be, my focus is mostly gymnastic work right now.
Okay.
And trying to find better positions in my gymnastic skills, being muscle ups, dips, iron crosses, front lever, all these type of things. Just trying to improve on L sits. Those are super difficult, but yeah, all of those type of elements just to try to build a nice, strong, static body. And while I do that, I'm observing and learning a lot from what SayKay has been doing. And then obviously still being coached in classes, because I just do classes all the time. So yeah, that's basically it. Hit it as hard as I can. And then, roll around on the floor for a while, pick myself up, take a shower, and, back to work.
Nice. Okay, so what about your mental health? What are you doing, in this time? I think everyone is trying to grapple with isolation, pandemic. You all are small business owners and we're closed for a significant part of the year. How have you been managing keeping yourself together?
Yeah, I mean, I'm always a huge proponent of therapy. So I always say, everyone get that therapist. We just got healthcare bags. We're going to get our therapist. That's a whole other long story if you want to go into healthcare and the issues on that. But
my wife is ironically a clinical psychologist, and I always laugh because as we talk about affordability, she works at a federally qualified health center. So you don't even have to have insurance. You don't have to have anything. You can just go on down to the wellness plan. And, there are a number of other FQHCs that provide mental health care, and it's free or at extremely low cost to everybody. But it's about making people aware that these services are there and available.
Yes. And then if not that, video games.
What are you playing?
Right now we're playing Cook Serve Delicious 3. We play couch co-op together. Yeah.
Cook Serve Delicious?
Yeah.
Are you pranking me? Is that a real game?
No, it's a real game.
It's fun.
Yes.
We play it on what?
Stuff like that.
What platform do you play this Cook Serve Delicious?
Switch.
Oh, it's a Nintendo game. Got it.
Yes.
Oh, it's a Nintendo game.
I know you want more like difficult games, like Cam give you those, but those like, yeah, we love a couch co-op. Like I don't play those shooter games.
My wife and I have the gym is my own, like we have 2 kids and I'm in the Army and I'm a legislator. So I don't get that many opportunities. So video games have been out of my acceptable space, except for the one game I play on my phone. But so to put this in perspective, I'm a PlayStation 3, but have not been PlayStation 4 or 5 eligible because it's too time consuming.
True.
We've got the 4.
Yeah, we got 4. Which is good.
Yeah.
What are you playing on your phone?
Yeah.
Boom Beach is so I have 2 games. I play Boom Beach and Settlers of Catan with my best friend.
Oh, there you go. Yes. Yeah, we play Settlers.
Oh, well, when the world opens up, I look forward to playing a game of Settlers with you because it's super fun and I'm all about it. But yeah. So thank you so much for joining it and having this, I think, really important conversation around fitness and really changing the way I think people look at and think about fitness, and even small business owners and the gym and these kind of spaces. I think too often we get into this space where you look at people and you're like, oh, that person who is like jacked and ripped and like benching a gajillion pounds, that's the fitness person, and not the person who can do kind of interesting things. And so I really appreciate, you sharing what CrossFit is and some of your journey and how people can get engaged. Do you want to tell people how they can reach out to you, how they can fire Iron Roots athletes and you personally and stuff like that?
Yes. We're all over Instagram for all of them. So CrossFit_HCS is the gym. Iron Roots Athlete is platform promoting Black and brown people of color, predominantly Black, either heroes or victims of police brutality. WADS education is all there. I'm on Instagram, SayKay.Brown, Cam as well a little bit, but also CrossFitHCS.com will direct you to all those things as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. This is been a really great conversation. I look forward to having you back and to continue the work that you're doing and Elevate.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Yeah. So this is Senator Adam Hollier, and this has been the We Can Do Better podcast. And it was great to talk to some more folks who are doing cool and interesting things in the 2nd Senate District and across Michigan. Especially grateful to highlight some of the work that you've been able to do in Hamtramck around the school and all the stuff you're doing moving forward.
Thank you.